Hey, Beauty. You know the story of the prodigal son? I was thinking about this story today. It made me think of things that I'm thankful for about God. So, if you remember in the story, the prodigal son asks for his inheritance. And then in the Bible, it says that he squanders it. He squanders his inheritance on reckless living. His father decides to give him his inheritance early, and he squanders it. So he runs out of money and he wants to become his father's servant because he doesn't have any money to eat or anywhere to live. So let's start reading in Luke chapter 15, verse 17. This is from the ESV version. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. So the father in this story, he represents God. The prodigal son and also the brother can represent us, right? So the story made me think of three things that I'm thankful for. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the US, and I wanted to share three things that I'm thankful for, three things that we can learn from the story. Number one, we serve a compassionate God. This son, he went and squandered his inheritance. He thought that his father would be mad at him. He just wanted to be his father's servant. But instead of being mad at him, the father, it says, father saw him and felt compassion. He ran and embraced him and kissed him. Father is full of compassion. Do you believe that? The reason why I thought of this was because I was listening to this podcast of someone that I really respect. She was talking about this story, and then she talked about how she would read the Old Testament and she wouldn't she would get kind of scared because it seems like the God of the Old Testament is just this angry God that wants to get rid of people. But if you read the Bible, even the Old Testament, objectively, you'll see that that is so far from the truth. I did another episode on this where I talked about Jonah. If you remember in the story of Jonah, God sends Jonah to the Ninevites to tell them to change his ways. You know, after being thrown into the belly of the whale, Jonah listens. He tells the Ninevites to change their ways, and the Ninevites actually listen. Because they decide to listen, God has compassion on them. And at the end of the story, Jonah is mad at God for having compassion. And once again, if you read the Old Testament objectively, you'll see how many times God forgave the Israelites over and over and over again. I really think that it's part of Satan's scheme to kind of blind us to the fact that God is so compassionate. I really encourage you to read the Bible with new eyes and see just how compassionate God is. It's hard for me to believe too because every relationship that we've been in, it's conditional, right? Because no one is perfect. Our parents were not perfect. Our friends are not perfect. No one is perfect. You might have had a wonderful childhood, but you know that your parents were not perfect. No one will ever love you the way God does, the way Jesus does. So I am thankful that God is a God of compassion. Number two, let's go back into the story. This is verse 21. The son says, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. So look at what he does. The father puts the best robe on his son, he puts a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. The father was not angry at his son. He didn't treat him as a servant. He treated him as his son. He basically treated him like royalty. That's the way God sees us too. Even when we mess up, He says, come on, child, let me put on my robe and my ring on you. You are my child. And that is the second thing that I'm thankful for. I am thankful that I am God's child, which leads to my next point. Verse 31 says, and he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. The father is telling his other son this, the son that was mad at his father for accepting the prodigal son. He's saying this, the father is saying this to his other son. He's saying, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. The third thing that I'm thankful for is that I have an inheritance. I'll say that again. It says in that verse, all that is mine is yours. The fact that God is so compassionate, the fact that we are his children, and the fact that we get an inheritance is so amazing to me. Can you identify with this angry brother? I think there are a lot of times when we truly don't realize the inheritance that we have, the blessings that we've been given. Because we are God's children, we have been blessed with every spiritual blessing, I think the verse says, in the heavenly places. I know it doesn't always feel that way, but it's the truth. That's why the Bible says to focus on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. So if you maybe are feeling down right now, I know that the holidays can be hard for some people. I hope that you will think about these three things that you can be thankful for. Number one, you serve a compassionate God. Number two, you are God's child. Number three, you have an inheritance. If for some reason you're listening to this episode and you're not God's child, the Bible says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you confess and are saved. So if you don't know Jesus, I hope that you will get to know him. I hope that you will accept his free gift of salvation. I hope that you will call him Lord. I pray that I pray this over you this holiday season. If you have any questions about this, you can always email me hello@herholistichealing.com. If you're in the US, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Go ahead if you have not downloaded my free guide, go to herholistichealing.com/free. Download my free guide entitled Holistically Healthy Woman: 4 Steps to Move Away from Modern Medicine for Christians. It is for women that want to learn about natural health that want to have healthier bodies, that want to move away from modern medicine. This will be a great guide for you. Go to herholistichealing.com/free. I will talk to you guys soon.